to We're Talking About. My name is Kaley Gray. I am so excited that you are here this week. It is going to be a fun episode because this is an episode that I've never done before. It actually was requested by one of you. So sometimes I'll like put on my social media, like what topics do you want me to talk about? And this one was requested, and I was like, you know what? I actually have not done an episode like this before. And so I was like, I totally should do that. So I'm super excited to do today's episode. So be sure to follow along on my social media. And if you have not subscribed to this podcast, please subscribe. You can listen or you can watch on YouTube. And so I would love for you to do that. And if you want to leave a 5-star review, you know what? I wouldn't hate that either. So anyways, I'm super excited. So today I am going to kind of talk about how I made the decision to move. And so I grew up in Iowa, lived there for 23 years of my life, went to college back in Iowa, like near where my parents lived. And so I, left and was like 30 minutes away from home. So I feel like I kind of like gained some independency. But I also was like I loved being around family, loved being around my parents' church. And so was able to still be really involved in that. And so I was very much involved. So I decided, I think it was like halfway through college, I actually decided to like move from like living in the college town to back home and just commute. And so I kind of just set my schedule to where I could do that. I also graduated early, so I wasn't going to be there as long, didn't want to be in a lease as long. And honestly, like I always felt like renting was a waste of money. I still do. And do I rent now? Yes, I do. But it's just the season of life that I'm in. So, it is what it is. But I really just like spent that time like after college and everything, just like really like working and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was like deciphering between doing my elementary ed degree and teaching, or I was also a personalized manager and selling insurance. But I also loved like serving in my parents' church. I was the youth leader at that time, but I was still like always praying like what those next steps should be and like what God wanted me to do. And so I felt like a shift was coming, but I just didn't know what that shift would be. And so let's rewind a little bit. So when I was 21, 22, I would say, I started visiting a friend here in Oklahoma, and she had transferred. So we had went to university in Iowa together, and then she transferred our junior year. So my junior and senior year, I would always go and visit her on my spring break because my spring break was always like a week before hers. And so I just like absolutely like fell in love with Oklahoma. I fell in love with the people here. She was involved at this church that had a young adults ministry. And so it was just so amazing. Like I just had so many like-minded people. And I just didn't always have that like where I grew up. And so I would always just like visit. And so I felt like maybe at some point in life, like I would want to move there, but I just didn't know if I ever would because I really was planted back home in Iowa. And so I just like really didn't know if I would leave because I really loved everything in Iowa. But in January of 2023, I went to a conference in Oklahoma. So I had been out of college for a year now. And so it wasn't 23 yet. It was a month before my 23rd birthday. And so I went to this conference for this young adults ministry. And I think it was like a 2-night conference, but I remember on Friday night, there was a guest speaker. And I just remember there being I remember like going to it and being like, God, like, I just need a sign. I just need to know, like, if I'm supposed to move here. Like, I love it here, but I love it in Iowa. So I need you to like give me a sign. And I don't remember like what the speaker was speaking that night because it was a guest speaker. But I remember like going to the altar call, and I just like went down to the altar call. because I was wanting clarity in my life. I was just like wanting God to like reveal himself to me and like let me know like what I should be doing with my life. Like what young person doesn't. Like, sometimes I'm still like I'm in my 30s. I'm like, God, what am I doing with my life? And so like when you're out of college, I feel like there's so much pressure. You're like, okay, like what am I supposed to be doing with my life? I have this degree now. And I just remember I was at the altar call and I like felt God tell me like, hey, you need to move here. And I literally like just started crying. I was like, what? Like I was like, I couldn't believe it. And so I kind of just like held it in and I didn't say anything to anybody or anything. And then we left the conference and we were driving to dinner to meet up with a bunch of people. And I like got my phone out and I texted my mom and I just was like, hey, I think God's telling me I need to move here. And she was so supportive. Like, what most mothers would be like, no, I don't want you to leave from home. And so she was super supportive. And I honestly, I don't even remember what she said, but I just remember her being supportive in that. But I didn't really say anything to anyone. I just was kind of like in shock of like, okay, like, God, is this real? Like, what am I going to do? What are we doing here? And so, but there was also an excitement too. I'm like, okay, like I'm excited for this new thing because something God has been so good to me is He always like prepares my heart for like a season changing or a shifting or something like that. And so, I'm very thankful for that. So, but at that time, I was, like I said, the youth leader of my parents' church. I was helping out a lot. I was working. I was close to all my family. Like I had a great life. I just didn't have like a ton of community my age. I had a few friends. But I didn't have like a ton of community. And so the thought of moving was like, it's super exciting. It was scary all at the same time. And so I remember that month when I got home, there was a prayer night at my parents' church. And while I was there that Sunday evening, I was like, okay, God, like, I know I'm supposed to move. Like, what am I supposed to do? Because, like, I just had graduated, like I said, with my elementary degree, and then I was working in insurance. And so I felt like God was telling me, you need to go to Bible school. And I literally was like, what? Bible school is never in the plan. My parents went to Bible school. That's actually where they met in Denver, Colorado. What's so funny is the two things I told God I would never do is I would never move away from home and I would never go to Bible school. And so in the words of Justin Bieber, never say never. Because, when you surrender your life to God and you're like, okay, God, like, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? I like never thought I would move from Iowa, and I always thought I would stay and be in my parents' church. And so I just moving away from home wasn't the plan. And so I wrote down go to Bible school, and there happened to be a Bible school at the church that I was connected to in Oklahoma. So I took steps to apply. I was accepted in the spring of 2013, and then I would start classes in the fall of 2013. So in the midst of this decision that I'm like deciding to move, I feel peace about the date June 1st. So then I start telling people that I'm moving. And then honestly, one of the hardest people to tell was Kennick, my little sister. Because I was going to miss out on seeing her grow up. And so that was honestly like a really hard thing to do. It was like exciting and hard all at the same time because like I knew I was going to miss out on things, and then my brothers in high school and a lot of stuff they would be doing. But like it was crazy. I had peace and I knew like I was supposed to move. So I tell people I'm moving. So I'm also like, well, I'm going to need a job if I am, moving. And I needed something that would go well with my Bible school schedule because I would be in classes from like 8 to 12 every day. And so I look on care.com. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, but it was to find a babysitting job because I had been babysitting my whole life. I'm like, that would be easy, accommodating. I had friends in Tulsa like tell me like that's where they had found jobs. So I was like, okay. So I also like the whole living situation. It was great that my friend that had already lived there, that I transferred in college, she already had an apartment with a girl, and so, or a couple girls, and so they thankfully like let me live with them too. So I didn't have to like worry about like trying to find a new place. So that was like fully established. So um June 1st comes around, and what do you know? I still don't have a job, but I felt like I was supposed to still move. So I pack up everything in my vehicle, and like when I say my vehicle, I mean like a Ford Fusion. I didn't even have an SUV. And so I just had everything I had in that vehicle, and I really felt like I was taking a step of faith. And I was like, okay, God, like this is what I feel like you're calling me to do. Like I'm going to need you to show up. And it was so amazing. 2 weeks after moving there, I interviewed with a family to be a nanny for their little boy, and the schedule worked out perfectly for me with Bible school. And I'm still, friends with well, he's not a little boy anymore. He's like in college now. But it's just so crazy how like I that happened right after I went there. Then I was living in this apartment. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. So we had 4 girls living in there. I was sharing a room to help cut on costs and everything. And so, like, for the first month of me living there, I literally slept on like a blow up mattress. I didn't even have like a bed. I mean, of course, I like put like a comforter and blanket and stuff on it to make it like look like a bed, but I just didn't, I wasn't able, like, I didn't have anything. And so I also had like a little bit of a nest egg saved up for moving and stuff like that to help with expenses and everything, especially if I couldn't find a job for a little bit and then needed to be able to pay for Bible school. And so I wanted to make sure I had a job first before I like started buying like all the things that I needed. So therefore I slept on a mattress for the first month, or an air mattress. Then this apartment, we had like no furniture, and there was like a tiny kitchen table that sat like maybe 2 people. And so it was just so crazy. So my roommates and I, we literally like, we just like prayed and believed. We're like, we want this place to be a place where we can host people and have people over. Like that was all of our hearts. But I'm like, God, we're going to need furniture. We're going to need a kitchen table. And it was just so amazing. Just like people we would connect with, they would be like, oh, hey, like we're actually like getting rid of this couch. Do you want this? Or we're getting rid of, this kitchen table. If you want, you can have it and stuff like that. And I mean, it was like gently used stuff, but it was like perfect for us. Like we were like literally so thankful for this. And we just watched over the summer, like how our apartment literally became furnished. And that was just like another faith step, and just how I saw God show up. And I was like, okay, God, like I know that I'm supposed to be here. So that was just like so amazing. And then it's been so crazy too, because like when I first came down here, like I knew a couple people from like visiting and everything. And so I, when I have grown up, like I've had friendships, but I haven't had like a ton of close friends. I would always like, have like 1 or 2 maybe like close people in my life. And so that's like something I always prayed for, was to have like good friendships. And when I first moved down here, I started volunteering at the young adults ministry because I wanted to be involved in the church. And I became friends with this amazing crew of people. We literally would hang out every weekend doing stuff. We would have game nights, we would have lake days, we would have pool parties, we would go out to dinner, we would have just the girls' nights, we've had the guys and the girls. Like it was just something I had never really experienced before, like getting to hang out with like 30 people on fire for God, nobody drinking and like having to be under the influence for anything. And we just had so much fun together. And some of the game nights are like still some of my favorite nights to this date. And I'm just like, I think back of those days and I'm like, wow, God, I'm so thankful for those moments and those memories because they truly like shaped who I am today. And so um I they were just like another answered prayer because I like had been praying over the years for just like amazing community, and I'm still 11 years later still friends with pretty much all of those same people. And so it's just so amazing how um all of that happened. And so when moving here, I wanted to make sure that I had a good local church. These are things I thought of. Like I wanted to make sure I had a good local church. I needed a job. I needed to have purpose of like being here. And so, I needed community. And it was just amazing how God showed up and like gave me the reason. He got me involved with the young adults ministry. He provided a job nannying. He gave me a purpose of going to Bible school for being here. And then he gave me a community of friends. So it was just so amazing, like that step of faith. I just saw how God just showed up time and time again. And, I won't lie, I will say I was homesick a lot. But God would truly reveal himself to me time and time again of showing me like why I needed to be here. And so maybe you're at a crossroads, like maybe you're not sure maybe like what step you should be taking next or if you should be moving. I will tell you that before I moved to Oklahoma, it was 2 years. It took you 2 years from the time that I started visiting to the time I moved to come. And so I always like tell people like, hey, like just because it's a not now doesn't mean it's a never. And so I want to just encourage you with that maybe it's not now, but I want to give you too some tips that might help you with when you're trying to decide that next step, whether it is moving or what you're supposed to do. And the first one is seek God through prayer. That is the biggest thing. God, He is going to reveal your life and guide you the steps of like what you're supposed to do. And my favorite scripture to pray for that is Psalms 143, 8 and 10. And it says, show me the way I should go, for to you I lift up my soul. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. And so that is a scripture that I encourage you to pray. Pray those specific prayers and being real with God and asking Him to reveal what it is that you are supposed to be doing in this next season. Because He will reveal that to you, whether He speaks audibly, He speaks through someone else, He gives you the peace. There's so many different ways that He can reveal that to you. And then reading scripture. So spending time reading the Bible, meditating on the word, verses like Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him and He will make your path straight. There are so many scriptures in the Bible, and I would constantly be reading them and meditating on them and praying them. And so I just want to encourage you, like really spend this time to be intimate with God, to figure out, because the more intimate you are with Him, the easier it is going to be to hear His voice. And, look for confirmation, whether it's like a reoccurring theme is happening or advice from trusted people that are speaking into your life, or everything just seems to be aligning in that way of like what you're supposed to be doing. He just keeps opening doors for you because sometimes He confirms His direction through multiple sources. So that's just something to be considering. And also for peace. So peace is a big one. There's like a deep sense of peace, and it can be a sign that it is the right decision. And it can also be a sign that you're not supposed to. If you don't have peace, I've had time and time again of like something recently that happened and I just didn't have peace to do it. And then it was crazy how a few hours later, something else happened and it was like much more like better than what I was supposed to be doing, like the first option. And I just was like, wow, God, look at that. Like my able to discern the peace. And so I was able to discern no peace and peace. And so something with that is that you can pray is Colossians 3:15. It talks about letting the peace of Christ rule in your heart, which can serve as a guide. And so I am a big advocate for peace, of going where the peace is. And so I just want to encourage you to Colossians 3:15, let Christ rule the peace in your heart. Um, Evaluate opportunities. That's like another thing. So whether the move offers you opportunities to like grow spiritually or fulfill a calling, or it aligns with like your purpose of what you're supposed to do, then that might be a sign that yes, I should move. I will say, when I did decide to move here, there were a few different job opportunities that I had thought at first about maybe doing, whether I should go into education, insurance, or whatnot. But really, it felt like I was supposed to go to Bible school. And so that was something that I don't regret doing whatsoever. Um, Consult with your wise counsel. Okay, so seek advice from spiritual mentors, pastors, trusted friends that can offer a good perspective for you, but also like pray for you. That is so important with making big decisions. Now, I don't just let anybody speak into my life about certain decisions. I make sure they are mentors, pastors, close friends, that like my board of directors, that I know that know me and they want the best interest for me. And sometimes like it's amazing how God will speak to them through them for me. And so then being open to God's timing. Sometimes the desire to move is right, but the timing is not. And so be patient and open to God's timing, and trusting that He's going to open the doors for you when the time is right. Like I said, it took me 2 years before I was able to move here. And I am so thankful for that time of waiting, because there was also stuff developmentally that I needed to do back home before I came here. And so moving, it was really one of the hardest and scariest things that I've ever done, but it's one that I've had the most peace with. And so you have to go where the peace is. And sometimes it's scary, but you're going to see God's favor if that's where you're supposed to be. And so I hope that this podcast just encourages you. I really am just all about the peace. So please go where the peace is. And I'm just excited for what is ahead for you, where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to do. Maybe it's you're supposed to stay planted where you are and just start getting involved more. Trust me, the more involved you are in the kingdom and serving in the local church, it's amazing just how much like joy and passion that brings to you. And you don't even have to be in full-time ministry, but just like serving, volunteering in kids, young adults, youth, greeting, opening doors. It's just amazing, just the life change that you're going to see happen in your life. And so I'm excited for you. It's a fun new season this fall. And so let's get ready for what God has to do for us. And reminder just to go where the peace is. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.